I believe it's a very sorry day for Parliament today. I believe the Minister is overseeing one of the most anti-democratic processes that one could imagine. And I have just heard the member who resumed her seat, and I heard the Minister say that this was okay because of what happened in Rodney. So I want to go back over what actually happened in Rodney. In April 2000, the local government minister of the day announced that she had accepted a ministerial review authority recommendation to appoint a commission to replace the elected representatives of the Rodney District Council. But this example differs significantly from the current ECAN situation in the following ways. In October 1999, that was before the election in 1999, the Rodney District Council itself requested the review of the council following the unanimous decision of the council. So I'd like to ask Amy Adams and the Minister, where was the unanimous decision of this council asking for the government to intervene? No, there's no feedback from those that have resumed their seats, so therefore they are accepting that in fact there was no request from ECAN for the review that has occurred. In this case, rather than the unanimous decision of the Rodney District Council to ask for a review, in this case the Minister himself appointed who? Wyatt Creech. Now, Wyatt Creech has an association not only with the government, which is pretty obvious, but actually also with the industry that demands so much of our water resources in Canterbury. Don't you think that I'm not playing the man? I actually think that the Minister's being unfair. I'm talking about conflict of interest. Jenny Shipley, who was prepared to step aside on the basis that she could identify what was a clear conflict of interest in terms of being asked to be the lead commissioner in this new world order that this Minister has imposed on Canterbury. But actually Wyatt Creech wasn't prepared to do the same when he himself has been held to account by, in fact, the regional council in his area for what he has done in terms of his particular company that he is responsible for. Now, what I'm trying to say here, and I think that the Minister should take some notice of this, is that when there is a conflict of interest, it doesn't have to be real. The perception is enough. And in this case, the perception is more than real. And that member, the previous Deputy Prime Minister of New Zealand, should have stood aside. He was conflicted in every way, shape or form. And I'm not surprised that he recommended that there should be a separate water authority for Canterbury. I bet he wishes that there was a separate water authority that was taking no notice of what his company was doing up in the Waikato. Mr. Speaker, the second thing that happened in this case was that the Minister himself set the terms of reference for the review, and the third thing was that the Minister discounted the possibility of a protracted inquiry, which meant that there wasn't enough time for this inquiry to engage in the process in any meaningful way. Mr. Speaker, the actions of the Labour government back in 1999, when we had just assumed office, were in response to a unique situation and at the insistence of the local authority concerned. On the 17th of November, I think we took our warrants in December 1999. On the 17th of November, the Council wrote to the then Minister commenting on the need for a review and said that they were wanting the government to intervene. That was before we had even taken office. Mr. Speaker, the Creech review was initiated as part of a government agenda. Nick Smith stated at the time these reports were initiated as part of the government's broader agenda of taking a more active role in the performance of local government on resource management issues. The two councils performed poorly in the 2007-2008 survey of resource consenting processes, took no notice of the fact that they actually improved their resource consenting processes in the subsequent financial year. On the 8th of December 1999, the then Minister of Local Government appointed a review authority to undertake a review in accordance with the request and the terms outlined by the Council. And as I've alluded, this was the first time a commission was appointed since the ministerial review provision in the Local Government Act 1974 had been enacted in 1992. The review authority received more than 80 submissions in the case of Rodney in response to public notices, because it was a publicly notified process. The Creech review talked to less or fewer than 20 groups. No submissions from the general public were invited. And actually, one of the things that I will make in terms of a point here is that the local authority mayors were consulted. Not one of them, as a result of an Official Information Act request, we know that this is the case, not one of those mayors consulted their elected colleagues on their council.
Why not, Nick?
Not one.
Who did?
Not one. Name one. Because Joe Kane was the regional councillor who made the Official Information Act request was Joe Kane, and the response was that not one of the mayors, or indeed the chief executives that were consulted, not one of them consulted their elected councils on in terms of their response. So every single one of those mayors who originally wrote to the two ministers at the request of the two ministers, and we know that the request went through Joe Goodhue to the Mayor of Timaru and then up to the two local body ministers, the minister who's taking this bill through, the Honourable Nick Smith, and also the Minister for Local Government, Rodney Hyde. They were requested to get this information through to them from the mayors. The mayors were asked to do this for them so that they could achieve the end that they have achieved on this particular occasion. And then in the 1999 situation, the 1999-2000 situation, the review authority that was appointed by the government of the day to review Rodney at the request of the Rodney District Council, they held a 6-day hearing in the month before they reported to the Minister. Well, I don't recall a hearing in the Creech review. In fact, I didn't even get invited to make a submission as a local member of Parliament. In fact, none of the local members of Parliament got invited to make any submissions on the matter. The review authority in 1999 was scheduled to report to the Minister by the end of December 1999, but that was extended to the 3rd of March 2000 after request from the review authority for a time extension. The Creech review, on the other hand, was a very slapdash job, and the reason it was such a slapdash job was that they had in fact been set their terms of reference to produce the result that they did produce. Mr. Speaker, in the wake of the review authority's findings, the Mayor and 5 elected councillors resigned on the 21st of March 2000, and the Mayor's resignation had triggered a by-election. As we all know the history of that time, no such situation has arisen in this case. And back in that time, the Minister announced the appointment of a commission on the 10th of April 2000, 18 months away from the next local body election. How long is it this time? Well, actually, the local body elections are only 6 months away now, so what we're talking about? 3.5 years. 3.5 years. Now, I just want to know something. I mean, are we going to stop collecting rates from the ratepayers under the Environment Canterbury catchment over the next 3.5 years? Are we going to stop collecting rates? Because there is a kind of fundamental principle, constitutional law, that talks about no taxation without representation. And I think that's exactly what this minister is foisting upon them. Well, I actually think it's so hilarious that this government would talk about DHBs. That government sacked every area health board in this country in 1991. Doesn't that member remember that? Because he was the one who was there at the time. I was there at the time, and they sacked the lot because